Okay, welcome to this evening's meeting of South Oxfordshire District Council's Cabinet. My name is David Rain. I'll be chairing the meeting this evening. Number one is Chair's announcements. That's probably telling us where to run if there's a fire. So the door, the exit for our guests is out there, turn right, and there's a fire exit that way. I don't have any further announcements. Steve, would you like to take the roll call?
Thank you, Chair. So in alphabetical order, if members could confirm whether they are present in the meeting room or present online. So Councillor Peter Paul Barker.
Present in the room.
Thank you. Councillor Robin Bennett.
Present in the room.
Councillor Sue Cooper is due at the meeting but not here at the moment. Councillor Maggie Philipova Rivers.
Present in the room.
Councillor Andrea Powell.
Present in the room.
Councillor David Ruane.
Present in the room.
Councillor Anne-Marie Simpson.
Present online.
Councillor Freddie Van Mierlo is not joined yet, so okay. Thank you, Chair.
Item 3 is the minutes of the last meeting. Can I sign the minutes of Cabinet meetings held on the 15th of February and the 7th of March? Is everyone happy for me to? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Yay.
One person sustaining their attention. Everyone's happy. Thank you. Item 4 is declarations of interest. Receive declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests, or any conflicts of interest in respect of items on the agenda for this meeting. Does anyone have any? Anne-Marie Simpson, Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, just to say my parents are private landlords and I look after property for them, but I'm not a private landlord myself.
Noted. Anyone else? As usual.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I half own a house with my sister, which we let out.
Noted that.
Thank you.
Councillor Barker.
Very similar. Let a house out.
We are a committee of landlords. No idea. As usual, if there are any other things that come to mind during the course of the meeting, then please declare them at that stage. As you may have noticed, Councillor Cooper has joined us in the room. Urgent business. I don't have any urgent business to announce. Item 6 is public participation. Steve, I understand we have some.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Yes, we have two members of the public and one councillor joining us to participate in the meeting. Firstly is Mr. Raleigh Hullock from the Southern Vale Taxi Drivers Association. Mr. Hullock, you have 3 minutes. Can you hear us, Mr. Hullock? Signal.
See that he's muted. Mr. Hullock, can you hear us? Shall we? Mr. Hullock, can you hear us? Shall we take the other caller?
Yep. So the second member of the public registered to speak is Mr. Jason Atherton, who is present in the room. Mr. Atherton, if you'd like to come to the table, and you have up to 3.
Thank you. Some of you probably met me before. We've been in and out of a few meetings. So today we believe you're going to take a vote on what we as drivers and businesses have a right to earn. You're going to hear from Diane Foster about the consultation. Riley had more to say on this, so wrong for me to go first, but the consultation wasn't done as we call a consultation. We were told this is what our proposal is, and the consultation had purely what the council licensing department proposed as a tariff. It didn't tell the trade about the options other than tell us what you think. We did our own within the association. 70+% of those that responded overwhelmingly wanted the tariff that we put forward, but not the one of the council. We gave them the Vales proposal. We gave them 3 other options. There was 4 options on the table, including the Vales proposal. Consultation that was sent out to public and to the trade had just the Vales. So it was, do you want this or not? We don't believe that's a consultation. I want to leave the rest of that to Riley if you can get him. But taking you back yourself, 2022, you'll remember if you were on that board, I was here then. The South did not have a tariff. The council chose that this was the time to impose a tariff on the trade. They were already charging an average of £3 per mile in South, which was perfectly accepted by the trade and the public alike. The council decided to impose £2.70. So you've got to remember before you make a decision tonight that 18 months ago, you imposed a pay cut of 10% on all your South Oxfordshire operators. So they're not working from 270, they're working on what they've lost in that time and what they want to gain. And also, we've had 1 increase in 10 years. So on average, we're getting an increase every 5 years. So what we have today is not got to provide us with income today. It's got to provide us probably for the next 5 years. Some of the figures that apply that you won't hear from the licensing team, national minimum wage in that 10 years has gone up by 71%. I, as an employer, have got to pay that, but I can't pass that on to my customer. Fuel for the vehicles is currently 60% higher than it was in 2014. It was £2, it was 100% higher. We lost all that money. Even the cost of the vehicles, 130% is the increased cost since then for a minibus. 60+%, and I'm talking like for like, what I bought, and if I replace that same car today. God forbid if the council get their way and we have to go electric, that's a £50,000 vehicle, that's a 200% increase. Also on that point, your licensing team, 18 months, 2 years ago, removed the discount for low emission vehicles. So they're forcing us to go low emission. We no longer get a discount on the licence fee. Gone up from 120 to £358. That's a 200% increase. Council tax that we all pay, up by over 40% in the same period. We've had 1 increase of 17.5%, and they want to give us another 10% now and say, aren't you lucky? You should be taking us. I can't survive in business. If we don't get the proposal that this trade want, I, as an employer, have run out of profit margin. I simply cannot afford to employ anybody anymore, because since you gave us the increase of 17.5%, last year was a 9.8% increase in national minimum wage, this year a 9.6%. I've already had to pay all that with no more money coming in. The single biggest pay rise awarded by the government was national minimum wage. That the bill of that comes to people like me. If you don't give the trade what we've asked for, and it's 70+% of the trade that want it, we cannot survive. We cannot provide the valuable service to the public. And at the moment, you've got certain companies which have all gone to private hire, so they're not governed by this, are literally ripping the public off because they can't get a taxi. £27 from Grove to Didcot Station, Go Green, £40.
Can I ask you to wind up, please?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying is, by not allowing us to have a fair price that we can provide the service, it's being exploited by private hires, and the public are now paying considerably higher than they should be. Having a low tariff does not work for the public, and it will kill off my business. I can tell you for sure will be finished if we don't get an increase. I cannot make profit, and I sure as hell cannot provide myself with the income to go and be buying £50,000 electric vehicles that licensing want us to have in the very near future, and they don't even work. They don't do the job. I wish I had more time.
Wait a moment. People might have questions.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Does anyone have questions, Mr. Atherton? Can I ask a question? Does your association support the Guildford method?
We support the Guildford tariff, not the Guildford method, because we are confused. This is what I said about Henley earlier. We are very confused as to how we have decided. In 22, the council statement said we started looking at the Guildford model. We decided it was too expensive. Those words came from our licensing, if you look back at that meeting. So they abandoned it because it was too expensive. Now, suddenly, they're happy to use it, and they've come up with exactly what we asked for in 2022. And we are 56 pence a mile less than Guildford. Do you seriously want to sit here as South Oxfordshire councillors and tell me it's cheaper to live in Henley-on-Thames, the second most expensive place in the country in a recent report? It's cheaper than Guildford. How are we supposed to survive? You know the cost of living in this area. It isn't a national thing. That's why we have locals, because the cost of living in Blackpool isn't the same as living in Henley.
Yes, clarify one misunderstanding, because I understood that the association supported.
We don't agree with the figures. We don't.
It's the tariff that.
This list of figures that the council have put in, we don't have access to those. We don't understand them, and there's been no proper clarification. It's numbers put in by the council.
Thanks.
And how did you come up with that much less than Guildford? It's just not possible for anybody with any ounce of common sense.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is Mr. Hollett now with us?
Come on, Riley. You sit in the car.
Popped in.
He's actually dropped off the hall chair.
Does someone have a number to try and get hold of him? And while we listen,
I'll just step out and try and see if I can get through to him.
Thanks. Shall we have Councillor Pesirera? Evening.
Hi. Hello. Hi. Hope you can hear me. I'm on my phone in between
That's
some
loud and
places.
clear. Thank you.
Good.
And it's 3 minutes.
Yes.
It's 3 minutes. Sam.
Okay. I haven't timed what I'm going to say, so I hope I can do it. So I just wanted to address you really, Cabinet colleagues, in a sort of critical friend point of view, really, as chair of SEAC, in relation to the climate and ecological implications paragraphs in your reports today. You've got various reports. I know some of them are confidential, so I won't give anything away in that. And there are sort of 3 things that I want to say about them. But first of all, I suppose I want to say that there are some that are really, really excellent. The climate impact assessment tool that has come out that the officers use, is really clear. For example, in item 9 on the DIDCOT green infrastructure strategy, it's really clear how that's come out. I think that there's what is it, item 11, where it could have been in the vehicle procurement strategy, the paragraph there isn't so clear about how they got to those conclusions, and it does refer to, sorry, I beg your pardon, there are some very detailed discussions on climate implications in the body of the report and in Appendix 1. But the actual implications paragraphs doesn't refer to Appendix 1, and it doesn't refer to sort of the complications. I know it's quite complicated, that particular one, the complications in the strategy. So what I want to say, the 3 things I want to say is that I have found recently that the reporting on this, the risks and the climate ecological implications paragraphs have been a bit patchy. So there's some really good reporting, and I think there's 2 areas here that like I said, really, really good, using that climate tool, using the sort of the visual graphics that are really bring those things out. But it's not across all areas. I think for completeness, they need to refer to those paragraphs need to refer to any sort of appendices that elucidate more on the climate and ecological implications. And thirdly, I feel that the ecological implications are much less clear. I think maybe the council needs to work a little bit harder on thinking through the ecological implications of some of the reports. Of course, not all reports will have an ecological or biodiversity implications, but I think that needs to be brought out more. And I just wanted to really offer my services at all, and work in collaboration with, the Cabinet Member for Climate and the Cabinet Member for Environment on these, because I think we're getting there. I think I would probably be less impatient if I thought that there was, we had lots of time. I feel that we don't, so I need to feel that the council needs to be possibly a little bit faster in ensuring that all these things are really taken into account across all the reports. And for somebody like me, or somebody for the public, or in terms of transparency, it'd be really good to be able to do a search on some of these cabinet and official external papers on climate or ecological implications, and really see that and really bring them out about what we're doing. That's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. I think the immediate response is we hear what you say. I think from what you were saying, you like the way it's been done in the newer paper as opposed to the older ones. So every day's a school day, and hopefully we'll pick up on your suggestions there. But I think the intention is that we move towards the way in which we do things on the paper that you liked, the one with the wheel.
Ones with the wheel. There were more than one with the wheel, so that's really good. But yeah, I just feel the ecological implications need to be addressed as well, a bit more, as well as the visuals and reporting.
Thank you. And do we have Mr. Hollock with us yet?
I'm going to leave that.
He's just joined again the meeting.
Okay.
So, Mr. Hollock, can you hear us?
I can now. I am terribly sorry. I don't know what's happened, but I was having major problems getting connected. I don't know whether you can see me or hear me.
We can, loud and clear. Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Right, before I start, I would like to ask the committee. Yeah, I would like to ask the committee a question before I start. What do you consider? Do you think the consultation means? What is the committee's understanding of that word?
I believe we have a policy on consultations, which is published on our website. The Chief Executive.
I mean, we believe it to mean to discuss, negotiate, to communicate before a decision made. Would you agree with that as a statement? That's what a consultation is.
I think that's a summary of what we're doing. Yeah.
Right.
So you have 3 minutes.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Please bear in mind the importance of the fact that I've addressed you. At the end of December, licensing arranged a consultation meeting with the association, and this took place in January. We were looking forward to this and were expecting to be able to discuss and negotiate a mutual agreeable tariff, but licensing just told us what the tariff was going to be. We were not given a chance to put to licensing what we wanted. There was no negotiation, discussion, or communication. In our opinion, licensing has failed again to follow and comply with instructions given to them by the Cabinet. The association then consulted the trade. Majority of the trade, 73%, wanted a particular tariff, and this tariff was forwarded to licensing. Now, looking at the results from the public consultation, it shows an overwhelming rejection of the licensing tariff, but instead they wanted the tariff proposed by the association. The tariff figures that the association has recommended were based on Henley compared to Guildford. In February 24, Henley was named as the second most expensive market town in England. The overall cost of living for our licensing area is considerably higher than Guildford. Long-serving businesses are being forced to close because licensing fails to allow them to keep up with the increased cost. The minimum wage has gone up by 70% since 2014, while the tariff has only been raised by 17.5%. And since the implementation of the tariff in 22, the minimum wage has risen by a further 20%. If we do not get a tariff that the trade needs, there will be less hackney drivers and general public will be forced to use private hire, like Go Green, and they are being charged exorbitant rates. For example, a client wanted a taxi from Wallingford, to Wantage. With a hackney, it would have cost £46, but Go Green were going to charge £88. Licensing will say only a minority of responses received, therefore, the majority of the trade are in favour of the proposal. What they are not telling you is the majority of the licensees used by drivers work for private hire companies, Royal Cars, 001 Cars, Go Green and Reading Taxis. These drivers did not bother to respond to the consultation as they are using the private hire rates and not the hackney tariff, so it does not affect them. Licensing is more concerned as to what position they would appear in a league table than what is right and fair for the trade. Remember what I said to you at the beginning. Please remember that a consultation means to discuss negotiate and communicate before a decision is made. We have not been given this. We have just been told what we can have. This is not right or proper, and we ask the Cabinet to put the right and request to support and endorse the tariff that the Association is recommending. Please note that taxi tariff is a maximum that can be charged, but there is nothing stopping the tariff charging a lower rate if they want to. We're the only profession that its earning ability is set by someone else. Solicitor, plumber, electrician, surveyor, consultants, all can set their own where they can charge, but our profession must be guided by licensing. It is therefore important that licensing listens to the trade and implement a tariff that is acceptable to the trade so that we can provide a professional and quality service. Licensing wants not
wind up, please.
Okay. Well, basically, we're asking the Cabinet to support the tariff that the Association is putting forward, because we can't survive on what they're offering.
Thank you. And that was all of our public speakers, yeah? Yes. Thanks. The discussion on Hackney carriage fares will be coming up very soon under item 8. First of all, we have item 7, which is recommendations and updates from other committees. As I understand it, recommendations from scrutiny have been incorporated into the papers. So because we had sufficient time between those meetings. So if I can make sure that Cabinet members have read those recommendations in as part of that paper. The other committee that we've had since these papers were written was Joint Audit and Governance. I believe Darius has a report from that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the Joint Audit and Governance Committee met on Monday, and they received the updated Code of Corporate Governance, which has been through the Constitution Review Task Group, and they recommended that it be approved by Council and incorporated into the Council's Constitution. They also agreed with the suggested amendments to the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act and authorised the Head of Legal and Democratic to make any minor administrative changes to the policy as necessary. The committee approved the internal audit plan for 2024-25, noting that it was a flexible plan and could incorporate new risks that could emerge over the year. The committee also received an update report on the 2022-2023 and 2023-2024 statement of accounts and approved the revised statement of accounting policies that would apply from 2023-2024 due to a new accounting requirement. The committee will also introduce the new external auditors for 2023-2024, Bishop Fleming, who will be taking over from EY, who presented their audit plan to the committee. And finally, the committee noted the half-yearly progress review of the corporate risk register, and they agreed to discuss the number 1 corporate risk in detail at their next meeting on the 2nd of July, with inviting relevant officers to present and answer their questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So no actual recommendations for this meeting.
Not to Cabinet, Chair.
May I ask a question about it? And Darius, you may not be able to answer, so apologies, but that last item about corporate risk,
yeah,
the item 1, do you remember what it was?
The reason I didn't specify is that it's an exempt item because it's sensitive financial information for the council.
Okay,
but I can obviously pass the paper on to you.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Yeah.
Really curious now.
It piqued everyone's curiosity. Thank you for that. Mr. Hart, can I ask you to turn your camera off now, whilst you're not speaking, because you appear very large on our wall.
And now I'm very even larger.
We're moving on to next item, which is item 8, Hackney carriage fares. Before I introduce the paper, can I ask Laura, who I understand is online, first of all, if you have anything that you want to add to what the paper is in front of us, and then I've got a question for you.
Yes, of course. Sorry, my camera's not working. I am here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Splendid. I'll keep trying on the camera. I don't think there's anything in particular I was going to add to the report. Diane's also on the call. I'm not sure if she picked up anything that needed to be added at all. You're on mute, Diane.
Apologies, sorry, just unmuting there. No, I just want to draw your attention really to the main points of the report. I think we've included all the information, all the relevant information in the report, but just to clarify that the information in Appendix C was included in the consultation itself, which includes all the information that on how the our proposed tariff was calculated. And also, in addition to that, the consultation also included an article from a taxi trade magazine that explained that information in much more detail. But no, I think all the information is in the report. But yeah, I'll still take any questions.
Does anyone else have a question? Because I have one. I think I know the answer to it, which is the. Oh, sorry, Robin. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you. Well, just related, Diane, just given what we've heard from the association there, in your view, does that first calculator provide for taxi companies to be able to pay the minimum wage to their staff?
The information that's taken into account, it's data from the Office of National Statistics on the average salary and earnings for the districts. It also takes into account the costs of running a vehicle, which let me just get my document up. So it's includes the cost of depreciation, the capital cost of a vehicle, the cost of insurance, road tax, breakdown cover, fuel, and the allowance with the fuel actually increases a higher percentage than the actual fuel cost of fuel, because it allows for increases throughout the year. It takes into account like servicing and replacement tyres and all factors like that, as well as costs of associated with being taxi. So all our the license fees, all the costs associated with the application process, so sort of medicals, all the charges, all the things that we impose on as into our policy for the trade. And it takes into account average mileage that a taxi carries out, and all factors. So yeah, we are. It's a nationally recognised calculator that has been through a judicial review process at another council and was proven to be a fair model that takes into account all the relevant factors. So yes, I'm satisfied with that.
So in summary, the increases in costs that have happened over a period of time are built into the model.
Yes. Yeah.
Councillor
Yes, they are.
Simpson.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, Diane. So it's called the Guildford model, but actually what you're saying, it uses a formula that's been tried and tested and is nationally used.
Yes, it is. It's called the Guildford model because it was devised by Guildford Borough Council. But yes, but you apply local figures, local factors into the calculator to get your local results.
And I'll ask my question and try to answer it, and you can tell me whether I was right or wrong. The difference between the Guildford model and the Guildford tariff. The Guildford tariff is what you get if you apply local Guildford figures to the Guildford model.
That's correct.
Comes out
Yes.
with a tariff.
Yes, that's correct.
Whereas if you apply local South Oxfordshire figures to the Guildford model, then that gives the figure that you've come out with
Yes.
in your. And the major differences would be the various costs. So you'll be comparing property within, is Guildford a borough? Or
Yes, I
within
believe
the
so.
area?
Yeah.
Yes, although the calculator doesn't actually take into account cost of property. It's basically mainly based on salary, local sort of salary information from residents in the districts, as well as the sort of vehicle cost as well. For example, I think paragraph 15 in the report details the main differences for the drivers for the costs in Guildford as compared to South Oxfordshire. I think Guildford have a number of compulsory additional costs that are imposed as part of their taxi licensing policy that we don't have, which have a considerable cost associated with them.
Okay, and the comparison of property costs, it's comparing Guildford Borough, the median for Guildford Borough with the median for South Oxfordshire.
Yeah, sorry, can you?
Yeah, so within the Guildford tariff, they would use the median property cost for Guildford, for the Guildford area,
Salary.
or the Guildford Borough. Whereas in your calculation, you've used the median for South Oxfordshire. So not, you wouldn't pick Henley or Didcot, you would pick the median across the whole borough, across the whole district.
Yeah, it's the median across the district, but it's annual salary. It doesn't take into account property values. It's an average salary.
Salaries, not property price.
Yeah, median salary.
Okay, Councillor Philippa Rivers.
I'm
Question?
going to ask this one of you just to give poor Diane a little break from questioning, but it was just around the regularity of reviews of tariffs. I think it was mentioned that did you say 15 years one hadn't been done before, the one in 22? Oh, sorry,
We've
10.
had 1 in 10 years.
1 in 10 years. What is the plan going forward, do we think, in terms of regularity? Because I think it's important that the council reviews the tariff fairly regularly. So I think that's a good question.
I think that prior to the previous tariff, we didn't actually set a tariff, did we?
Of course.
So it wasn't that we hadn't reviewed it, it was just we didn't set one. We set one in 2022, it's about 18 months ago.
Yeah.
We're now revisiting that.
Can I just help you clarify where that sounds wrong? We are now South End Vale. In the Vale, we've always had one. We've had 1 in 10 years. We've now been brought together and we have to do the same. So that is the difference, why it's 10 years. So yes, there was not one in South. It's the same licence department running the same. So
yeah,
that will now be part of that. So that
I understand that, and going forward, that's what we would do. Yeah. But we are South Oxfordshire, and the reason why we didn't review it was because we didn't have one.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's something for you to raise with the Vale around there.
But 18 months is it's quite frequent actually. So.
May I respond? I mean, again, this wouldn't have happened if we hadn't pushed for it. This wouldn't happen if we hadn't have got such a low response 18 months ago. We wouldn't be in that position. So this is not the norm.
Thanks. So it's on us as a cabinet to bring forward these reviews on a regular basis. It's for me as the portfolio holder at the moment to remind Diane and her team when it's next due. So that's all taken into care. If we can move on to no further questions, we can move.
Could I just ask you one just to clarify? So there was talk about the consultation, and there's Appendix B is the proposal that was consulted on, but then the proposal in Appendix G, the final proposal, that's different to that. So some things have been taken on board from the consultation. Are you able to just?
I will come to
it. You're going to come to that?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It's all getting out of hand. Okay, so if I'll introduce the paper and then we can move to debate. So our Hackney carriage tariff was originally set with effect from 1st of October 2022 and has been kept under review since that date. The tariff applies to all journeys carried out by South Oxfordshire licensed Hackney carriages within the South Oxfordshire district. It is a maximum and drivers can charge a lower fare if they wish. The tariff would not apply where the journey starts in South and ends outside the district or vice versa, provided the driver has agreed a fare with the passenger before the journey starts. If they don't agree a price beforehand, then they must charge no more than the tariff. Following the Cabinet meeting in September 2023, officers were asked to conduct a formal review using the Guildford method, and this is the report on the outcome of that process. The Guildford method is a nationally recognised method to calculate taxi tariffs, which takes a number of different factors into account, including local average earnings, the costs associated with running a taxi, and that is all set out on the information sheet at Appendix C, which was published on the survey webpage as part of the consultation. The report before you details the results of the consultation carried out on the proposed new tariff at Appendix B. The consultation was in addition to the legal requirement for a public notice, which was placed in local newspapers between the 31st of January and the 2nd of February 2024. The consultation was primarily via online survey, which was open between the 31st of January and the 19th of February, which was the maximum length of time possible given the reporting deadlines and the legislative requirement. Hard copies surveys were provided where requested. Emails were sent to all licensed hackney carriage proprietors with a link to the survey, and this was followed up with a link within the regular trade newsletter to all licence holders, which was sent on the 12th of February. The consultation was also publicised on social media and in the local press, and the survey link was added to the taxi fares page on our website. In addition, officers provided a drop-in session at the District Community Centre on the 6th of February, where drivers could discuss the tariff before providing their comments. And officers also visited each taxi rank twice, once in the daytime, once in the evening, during the consultation period to answer questions the trade may have. The consultation report at Appendix D confirms that 53 responses were received. Data from the consultation team confirms that 291 of the 344 recipients, that's 85%, opened the email, and 95%, that's 28%, then clicked through onto the survey. The full results are in the consultation report, and I've flagged the comment on page 4 that 10 duplicate responses were received from the same IP address. In addition, it's noted that a number of respondents who disagreed with the proposed tariff did so because they thought it was too high. Officers emailed the Southern Vale Taxi Driver Association on the 21st of December to confirm that they were preparing for a consultation on a revised tariff calculated using the Guildford method, and requested a meeting in order to provide an update. This meeting was held on the 12th of January, and officers showed them the tariff that had been calculated using the method and informed them that the type of information they should include in their response to the consultation if they didn't agree with the proposed tariff. The association has proposed an alternative tariff, which can be found on Appendix E, and some follow-up information at Appendix F. It is explained within the report that there is a need to use median figures to give typical average as per the Office of National Statistics advice, and that salary data has been taken into account using the model. Paragraph 15 explains that the Guildford tariff is higher, but that there are a number of additional costs incurred by drivers in Guildford, which South Oxfordshire drivers do not have. None of those who felt the tariff was too low have provided sufficient information to justify changing the figures generated in the model. Now, having reviewed the results of the consultation, officers have incorporated some amendments to the proposed new tariff at Appendix G, which relates to some of the changes of days and timings proposed by the association. I believe from that some of the proposals from the association were reducing the time when higher tariffs could be charged, so we didn't take those into account, but we did take ones where it would increase the tariff. The main aim of the tariff is to ensure fares charged to the public are fair and reasonable for both passengers and drivers. Adoption of the tariff in Appendix G would place us 13th, as in 13th most expensive out of 340 councils in the country, as detailed within the report. Officers are of the view that increasing the tariff any higher than proposed would have an impact on the users that need the service most, namely those on lower incomes and those with disabilities. The recommendations are to consider the results of the consultation, adopt the tariffs on Appendix G, and confirm use of the Guildford method for future annual reviews. And it does say they're annual reviews, so we will be looking at this in a year's time. So that is the proposal. I'll formally propose that. Can I see a seconder? Councillor Philippa Rivers. Would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll reserve my right.
Okay, if I can open that up to debate. Does anyone want to debate the issue? Councillor Barker.
Yeah, just to say that I think it's right to use a much more comprehensive model to calculate these figures, and obviously what's called the Guildford model is essentially that. We can all argue about which figures should be put into the calculation and so on, and obviously that's I'm sure always going to be a subject of debate. But I guess the point for us in South Oxfordshire is we're not inventing something special and unusual. It's a model which is used elsewhere and has proved to be robust. In terms of the interaction and the consultation and so on, if there's lessons to be learned, I hope we do that, and it's good to hear that this will be an annual process from now on, because we need to keep on top of this. And next time, I think we need to be also looking at the impact of this in terms of whether there's been any changes in the drivers, any move away from hackney carriages towards private hire and so on, just so that we understand the consequences as well. Obviously, we're a little bit blind in that at the moment because this is new for us. I appreciate the Vale have done this for a longer, but we haven't. So.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett.
I just wanted to thank Jason and Raleigh for coming to talk to us, and obviously we wish them well for the association and their businesses. And I guess the question of housing costs, it's not in the model. They've tried to sort of create a summary in their response to Appendix A. I'm not proposing that we should include that in the model because the model is a model. It doesn't, but it's definitely, I guess, the issue of housing costs is on our minds as a council in general, and we're looking at it later this evening as well. What we can do to provide more affordable housing in the district. So whilst I do hear what they're saying about that, and we certainly, I'm sure, we'd acknowledge that housing in Henley is expensive. I don't think the taxi licence fee is the place where we try and tackle that as a council. But it is on our minds, so to reassure them.
Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, I'd obviously like to thank our speakers as well, but I'd like to also thank our officers, because I do think they have looked at this very thoroughly and they have followed the process correctly. And this is a model that we selected. I think it was actually the Southern Vale Taxi Association that said they wanted the Guildford model or supported it at the time, and we did as well. So the figures aren't just made up figures, they are figures, I think, sourced properly. So I'd just like to, I feel comfortable that this has followed the proper process, and I just want to thank everybody involved.
I can see that Mr. Hullock's put his hand up. I'm afraid you have your period at the beginning to make your contribution. It's not a public debate. It's a meeting of the cabinet that just started. Anyone else wishing to? Councillor Philippa Rivers.
I'll go ahead. So yes, I'm in agreement with a lot of what others have said. It does sound to me that, quite a good consultation has taken place. I think we often get this, don't we, where a consultation is almost seen as a referendum. It isn't. There is so many factors that we have to take into account, including responses to consultations and various other types of engagement. We also have to care about residents that may be in need of this service. This is our function, is to protect our residents and businesses. So it is a bit of a balancing act, and I think it's really important to understand that there is a lot that goes into kind of looking at a consultation, but it is not a referendum, and this does come up quite a lot. I think, of course, there's always more we can learn, always more we can do in terms of engagement and meeting people where we are. I particularly liked the fact that our officers visited taxi ranks. This is very much in the spirit of what we're trying to do with our various policies, engagement on various policies. I don't think that I think with the you have sensed probably a little bit of commitment around the room, around regular reviews, around understanding and even more about the dynamics from one review to another in terms of, what Councillor Barker said about drivers going to private hire, etc. So hopefully this gives you some reassurance in terms of the way forward, that we care and we have heard you, and that hopefully we'll see you again and you will continue to engage irrespective of the outcome of tonight's committee. We value what you have to say. So I am supportive of the proposed approach, and I hope others will.
Yeah, if I can sum up, I think a consultation is not a negotiation. It's not like we're going in with the trade union to discuss to negotiate what particular salaries would be. It's a consultation around something which has to be objective, because otherwise we would just be making numbers up. And the Guildford model, for all any faults that it may have, it is the nationally recognised model, so difficult to argue that we could use something else. I get that Henley is more expensive than Guildford, but then Guildford is more expensive than Didcot. And what we have to look at is the district as a whole, and the salaries that we're looking at is for people across the district. And I guess the salaries is a proxy for house prices. House prices aren't within the model, but salaries are, and that is the gauge for that. The model that we come out with, or the figure that we come out with, the model is less than Guildford, but it is the 19th most expensive in the country, and it's the most expensive in the county. Oxford City, West Oxfordshire and Cherwell set tariffs that are lower than the one that we're setting. So whilst I hear what the drivers say, I can't see any objective reason not to accept the proposal that we have put forward. So that's my summing up of the discussion so far. If we can move to a vote, can I see?
Can I just interject briefly? Is that possible?
I'd rather you don't, because it would.
But you said you're trying to protect the public, and that's what we want to do. Go Green Taxis removed their entire fleet from Hackney Carriage after you imposed this tariff 18 months ago, so they can charge what the hell they like. Unless you allow businesses to have a rate that we can charge, you are going to counter. I told you, warned the council of this 18 months ago, and exactly what I said would happen has happened. People are being charged 30 quid to go into Abingdon from the outskirts of Abingdon by Go Green because they're charging for Didcot, because they can, because we haven't got any drivers out there, because I can't, as a business, afford to employ them. You are counteracting what you're saying. You're trying to protect the public. The public are being robbed because you're forcing people out of the actual only bit of control that is there, because you're going to the lowest common denominator. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And those figures are from 2 years ago, they've up, not from 10 years ago. I'm sorry.
I did check with the team that the comparative figures are the latest for each of those.
I run a business. I know what it costs me. And these figures just don't work.
You have heard what you say. Can I see
Don't you have
those in favour of the proposal in front of us? Those against? Those abstaining?
Absolutely jokes.
That's carried.
I'm going to apologise and leave before I say something I shouldn't. because, you know, I've been in this business for 25 years. I know a damn sight more about the trade. I've grown up my entire life in it than any one person in your licence department, and apparently we don't know what we're talking about. Thanks very much.
I mean, anyway.
That concludes item 9. Sorry, now moving on to item 9, which is Default Garden Town delivery plan update and next steps. Councillor Bennett, have you introduced me? Bennett?
Yeah, sorry. Did Riley want to turn off? Do you want to turn off your camera now, Riley? Right. Thank you, and thank you, Chair. Yes, I think this is for those of us that have worked on the Digital Garden Town project, which is all of us to some extent. I think this is an exciting time. There's lots of stuff that has been in the pipeline for a while coming to some form of fruition. And you can see, firstly, we are asked to note that the delivery plan progress, which is a lot of progress you can see in Appendix 1 across many areas. And then we are also asked to approve the Didcot wayfinding strategy, which I think is a really good document, and a lot of thought has gone into it, as you can see. And the idea with that is to sort of vastly improve the wayfinding in Didcot, and also to make it so there's not 100 different types of wayfinding and signage, which as there is currently. And I think what we've ended up with looks smart, but also links to Didcot heritage and with a slightly different designs for different parts of Didcot. And even as someone that's lived in the Didcot area for much of my life, with all of the changes in Didcot, it can be difficult to find your way around on foot or on the bike. So, in addition to all the plans in the LC WIP, the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, I think this new signage will make a real difference. It'll show how long it will take to walk between distant destinations, which I think will make walking and cycling a lot more appealing. And in tandem with all the other things that are going on around the Didcot Gateway area and the centre of Didcot, I think moving around Didcot is going to become a lot easier and better. And it's really pleasing that we're able to, if you agree, the next stage of the recommendations, that we're able to fund the whole of that wayfinding strategy and implementation. So all being well, that could be in place. I won't set a date, but relatively soon, which is exciting. Can I take bit by bit or just go in the whole?
Can you go for the whole? Because we've got 4 recommendations. So if you could.
Yes. So the other one, then also we have the green infrastructure strategy, which again is an extremely comprehensive strategy, mostly covering the inside of the Didcot Garden Town area, and full of ideas. Obviously, we can't fund all of it. It's not a document just for this council. It's something that can inform all of the Didcot Garden Town partners and also private sector and other local groups, full of ideas and research to back it up. And we've divided Didcot into the middle and then 4 quadrants, and our proposal is to fund essentially a bit in each quadrant to start with, and we've chosen the highest priority things that we can reasonably try and execute quickly to allocate this funding to in this round of funding. So again, that's something that we can get underway quickly, which is very exciting. Let's go back to the recommendations. So again, we allocate in item 4, we're then allocating funds towards this, so 100,925 from the capital fund towards the wayfinding improvements, which goes alongside around 40,000 that we have left over in the existing budget, and then 400,000 from the unallocated Didcot Garden Town capital fund towards the short-term green infrastructure enhancements to go alongside £100,000 that we already have, and fund total £500,000 of improvements. And so that's all really. I think this is very positive news and hope you will all support it.
Thank you. As the other member of the advisory board, I'll form the second. I'll reserve my rights to speak until anyone else has contributed. So does anyone else? Councillor Cooper.
Just to say briefly that I'm really pleased to see things moving forward on Didcot, because I had quite a lot of input when I was leader there, when lots of nothing was happening. So it's good to see it coming forward. And I wanted to make comment about the scrutiny input here. I think they put forward some very sensible, useful additions. You know, things like making the signs reflective. So, I mean, it's good that the report was ready in time for scrutiny to have a good look at it first. And, you know, I hope we can do that with other papers now. Thank you.
Mr. Powell?
I think this is really exciting. And what I really think is a great approach is to look at the plan piece by piece. You know, I think we inherited a plan that was huge and trying to do a bit of everything. And really, as a result, it was very difficult for, well, I don't think anything much was being done. I think what we did was focus it down on some clear deliverables and some projects that are going to make a real difference to the community and the residents of Didcot. Just anecdotally, today we spent the afternoon talking to people about our strategic plan for the next 4 years, and obviously a lot of the people there were local from Didcot, and we had some really good conversations with those individuals who were really excited to hear about these plans and felt that, you know, Didcot really did deserve this kind of focus and attention, and I think, you know, what we're proposing to do, I think officers have done a great job with working with some excellent consultants to come up with some really exciting plans. I think they're great and look forward to seeing them delivered. So really happy to support this.
Anyone else? Councillor Barker.
Just to say that, you know, I don't think there's that many garden town projects of this kind in the country, and we sometimes, you know, forget that that's quite a significant thing we've got in our district, and it's really great to see this coming forward and you know, continuing to develop, and there's a lot more to do as well. So I'm sure this is the first of many things that we're going forward through Didcot content.
Okay. So I'll do my seconding as the only resident of Didcot here. I'd like to thank Councillor Barker for mentioning how rare this is around the country. And Homes England, who fund it, came and did a report because they thought it was so good. The rest of us are so frustrated that it's not moving fast enough, but Homes England thought it was going really well. And so it's always good to have an outside view on these things. Going through the recommendations, the delivery plan is so much better than it was a year ago in terms of getting things moving. I'd like to thank the Garden Town team and Jane Bolton particularly, who leads that team, for having put some project management into it, of having sort of picked up projects and managed them through to conclusion in some cases. There are still frustrations in there. If one is a major frustration in there, it takes up part is project number one on the project list. But it looks so much healthier than it did. And I do want to have the reason why items 2 and 3, which is the wayfinding strategy and the green infrastructure strategy, are so exciting, is what people in Didcot really want is something they can point at and say, the Garden Town did that. And having sort of physical things there that make a difference. And I think the wayfinding strategy will definitely make a difference. When I first came to Didcot, I got off the train and we thought, where shall we go? And we headed off, as we now know, in the wrong direction and completely missed the town centre. And that is really easy to do. So we have thousands and thousands of new people who moved into Didcot and who don't know the highways and byways, and having a sensible, credible wayfinding strategy. I seem to remember there are 6 different types of signpost at the moment telling people how to get around So having some maps on plinths or it looks a bit, yeah, it's like the opening or the end scene of 2001, where you have this big sort of obelisk there, but to guide you around. And the green infrastructure strategy, people always ask where the garden is, and they got Garden Town. And actually, the newer estates around the town are actually quite green. I often remind people in Lady Grove that most housing estates don't have these green corridors and a lake in the middle of them. It is actually quite green, but when you go into the older part of Didcot, the old central part of Didcot, it can look very grey, and so the greening of that area is very welcome. So that's recommendations 2 and 3. Recommendation 4 is putting the money aside. As an accountant, you would expect me to say, if there's no money behind it, it doesn't happen. And so this is allocating money. It's worth reminding people that we have a capital fund that was given to us by Homes England of approximately 140 million, which is there to do exactly this sort of thing, to underpin the housing growth, and it's there for capital projects. So taking money out of that fund, it's money that can only be spent on infrastructure projects within the Garden Town. So that is what recommendation 4 is about, just to calm any nerves around the fact that this is eating into our capital budget. It's going into the capital budget, but it's coming from funds that we've received for this specific purpose. So yeah, I'm happy to support these 4 recommendations. Councillor Bennett, would you like to sum up?
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning the centre of Didcot, because in the green infrastructure study does a good analysis of where the current green space is or isn't, and that's definitely an area that needs a lot more, and we'll hopefully get some now. I'd also like to thank the whole Garden Communities team, Jane Bolton, Nikki, Charlotte, and the whole team, because in that action plan, we're not only trying to catch up with the 10 years and fairly little did take place, but also when I travelled today from the northeast of Didcot across to the Milton Park, it seemed like new houses had appeared at northeast Didcot that weren't there last time I came past, and some had appeared at the Valley Park area that weren't there last time I came past. So Didcot is growing before our very eyes. So we're also having to keep pace with that and keep having in our minds what it's going to become as well as what it looks like now, which is a difficult thing to have in your mind, and having this plan helps us to do that. So very delighted to recommend this to Cabinet.
Okay, sums that up. Can I see those in favour of the recommendations?
2 hands.
Those against, those, that was unanimous. Okay. Item 10, which is a joint South Oxfordshire and Vale of White Horse waste and street cleaning vehicle procurement strategy. When I think vehicle for procurement, I think Councillor Cooper.
Okay.
So when I think waste, but then
I think associate me with vehicles.
bicycles for all.
Right. Okay.
Nice one.
Yeah. This report is to inform the Cabinet of the current issues facing the councils in modernising and sustaining the waste and street cleansing operational fleet, and to outline the process that officers will use for the future procurement of new vehicles. The purpose of the report isn't to focus on specific numbers or types of vehicles, alternative fuels, or technology our councils will purchase in future, but to agree the mechanism by which officers will use to assess the market for us to be able to select the best vehicles able to complete the intended job, which is extremely important, as you'll all appreciate. Which are within these proposals are within budget and that we have available, and which have the lowest carbon emissions that we can arrange. The indicative timeline shown in the report is there to illustrate the forward planning process, which will take place prior to any purchase. But should an opportunity present itself, such as bringing forward capital expenditure for replacements of vehicles to save revenue, buying second-hand, if some particularly good ones come up, or leasing vehicles to cover short-term issues, then our officers will consider this and present as part of the business case process. I'd also like to say something about Sam's comment on the way we've treated climate change in this. And I would say that there are three big changeable variables in this. The one is the depots that we're working from, and then there's the system under which we run. We know the BIFA contract is there for another couple of years, but we don't know what will come next. And then, of course, there's the vehicles themselves, which are evolving, shall we say, and improving all the time. So I'm hoping that we can review this as we go along. This is a pragmatic way of working for the current time. When those other three, it may be that we need to review this in a couple of years' time when we know about what depot we're going to be working from, and indeed what our future needs are going to be for the vehicles. But in the meantime, I'd be pleased to know, what you think of what we've got here, which, as I say, is a pragmatic way of coping with the situation that we have at the moment.
Do you have a seconder? Yeah, I can second on that. And in fact, I'll speak straight away, which is to say, basically, this sets out the process that we will go through. It doesn't commit us to buying one vehicle or another, despite what the Didcot Herald might say. It's a keeping our options open process that just says we will consider this, and then we will consider this, and then we will consider this as a process to go through. We are just asked to note this, the contents of this report, and I think it's a sensible process that's been proposed to us. And if the world changes, then we'll change. But this is how it looks at the moment. So, can I open this up to any debate? Councillor Powell.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Go on.
Thank you. First question is about sources of funding to trial types of vehicles. And if I'm right, has there been an Innovate bid?
We can now talk about that.
Can we?
We can talk about the bid.
Yeah, no, that was my question actually, was what sources are there, are the sources I had was aware the Innovate was.
We've got Scott, you're right, yeah. Scott, have you got the wording we used from scrutiny on the bid we made?
Yes, I have, Mark. Let me just dig it out. In essence, we've made a bid to Innovative. So we've submitted a proposal for Ministry of Transport funding through the Innovative UK Transport Decarbonisation Demonstrators Fund. This is to carry out an initial trial of around 12 weeks of an electric refuse vehicle in partnership with an external logistics optimization software company and an electric RCV manufacturer. There's no comparable software currently available on the market, and given the national challenge on how we decarbonise rural waste collection fleets, the proposal has a strong chance of success. There would be a backup truck available. It would be replacing a current truck. So if there were any issues, maintenance of the frontline service that we provide, that would be easy to then just use the backup truck, as it were. So the risk is relatively low. The project, if we're successful, is likely to commence in June, with the operational trial beginning in autumn. And it aims to develop a software tool to use to optimise waste collection fleets and routes, and primarily using electric vehicles. In consideration of that, they'll look at the journey lengths, the load weights, any geographical factors such as hills, main roads, urban environments, numbers of bins that are being emptied, and of course the optimum battery size, because there's a balance between the battery size and the weight, and then the vehicle capacity and the payload of what it's able to carry. So regardless of the
Thank God, I think that's probably enough. So it's endlessly fascinating. Enough more for this process. Could I say one more thing? Go on.
There is national funding for new burdens relating to the government's new requirements around waste, which they have provided. Unfortunately, because South Oxfordshire already exceeded the government's requirement, we were one of a handful of councils got no capital funding from government.
No new burden.
No new burden. No, which is too good.
Okay, that was your question.
That was my first question. I did say
yes.
that too. My other question was the annual assessment table that's on page 218 of our pack. This is a really obvious question, and I'm sure I know the answer, but it starts in February of year one, let's say, and ends in December of year two. But I'm assuming that the process would start again in the February of the second year. So that's the life cycle of one assessment process, but then it starts again. So in this essence, there's an overlap. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? Any debate?
Well, yes, I am keen tonight because I think this is a really, really important and fascinating topic. And I actually attended a webinar back at the beginning of March. It was organised through our Green Party, and you would imagine, obviously, that the Green Party is very, very keen on improving the carbon or the efficiency of our waste vehicle fleet. And actually, what that webinar really revealed was the complexity of the challenge and the developing nature of this industry, and that there is no right answer today. There are lots of different fuel types and lots of different vehicles being developed, and I think we're taking exactly the right approach, which is to watch and learn, essentially. And if we are successful in getting some money in as well to trial some new vehicles, then fantastic, and so much the better for it. So I think the approach here, I was sort of checking against that webinar, which was obviously nothing to do with South Oxfordshire, but it was very, very similar in the sense that all the recommendations from the experts that gave that webinar really align with what we're seeing here today. So I'm very confident that what we're being recommended by our officers is the right way to go.
That might be what the Green Party is saying. Let me finish. South Oxfordshire Conservative Party, I'm sure you will find.
Can I remind everyone,
regardless of whether they're completely linked or not. Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm really sorry that you stopped Scott. I was getting really carried away with that. So, a trial and innovation, I love it. So hopefully we will go down that route. But I think it sounds quite exciting, possibly, and the right approach. So thank you.
Okay. Any further debate? Councillor Bennett.
Yeah, aside from, as you say, it's really important that we do manage to collect the bins, I think, especially the Green Party councillors. But I'm actually really excited, as Anne-Marie said, that Councillor Simpson says, about the trial, but also the software the route optimization software. So it's not just as simple as swap this vehicle for that vehicle. It's thinking about how the routes are organised, and that's way too complicated for me to think about. But if there's some innovative software that can work those things out, and as Councillor Powell said, every thing I could think of is covered off in this paper, and it retains flexibility. So very good. Thank you to the team.
Councillor Cooper, would you like to sum up?
Oh, sorry,
sorry.
Yeah, just to say that I think the paper sets out the challenges here really well. And so I certainly, welcome the paper. And the decision that was made to procure the vehicles ourselves to give us flexibility in future around the waste contract was absolutely the right thing to do as well. And that's, of course, why we're now looking at this and looking at how we fund it and so forth as the fleet gets replaced over time. And yeah, as someone who's worked in the fleet industry for a long time, it is disappointing that this is still where we are today in 2024. I think when we, for example, 5 years ago set the target of being operationally net zero as a council, by 2025, we didn't think we'd still be in the situation now where there is nothing on the market that satisfies the requirement of a rural council to collect, waste. It's staggering, really, but that is the situation. And I think it's also very clear, and as Sue said as well, which I really welcome, that this report is saying that we're going to do our utmost to be at the forefront of that and explore all the avenues that are available to us to reduce the carbon impact of the fleet as quickly as we can.
Councillor Cooper.
Right. Well, we know that the waste collection and street cleansing are the most important services or some of the most important services that our councils provide. We certainly hear about it if they're not. So it's important that we replace vehicles which are at the end of their usable life with suitable alternatives. And you can see that we'll do our best there. We've heard stories of other authorities around the country being early adopters of alternative fuels, but some of them are now paying the price because the range and the reliability of the vehicles are not what they were expecting. Our councils are among the best performing authorities in the country, so it's important that we maintain and improve our excellent services to residents. By having a robust process for officers to follow, ensures that we are able to make informed decisions on future vehicle purchases and protect the integrity of our services. I'd just like to add the interesting bit we had from Scott. It's quite interesting now that we're bringing in software on routing and collection services. It takes me back 50 years from my first job when I was doing similar things on how we're going to get cream crackers around the country. However, no, this is I'll explain later. No, I think this is a sensible way of moving forward, and it's a really interesting and quite exciting field to work in at the moment. And I look forward to further progress over the next few years.
So we're asked to note this. Can I see those in favour? That is everyone. Can we move on to the next item, which is Housing Delivery Strategy Update and Action Plan 24-25. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you. Yes, so this is, well, you'll recall that back in November 2022, the council brought forward its housing delivery strategy, which is the first document of its kind for the council, a similar one in Bed. Whilst acknowledging that we don't control all the levers of housing delivery and affordability, we're not, a lot of that's down to developers and interest rates, things like that, but this is trying to cover all of the things that we can influence or control as a council relating to housing delivery, and not just any housing, but affordable, suitable, high quality housing in the district. Recognising that everyone needs a home and that availability, affordability, location and quality will have a major impact on the lives and well-being of our residents. And to remind everyone of the 4 key objectives of the housing delivery strategy was providing homes to meet current and future local need, delivering housing that's truly affordable, valuing and supporting council and community-led housing initiatives, planning for well-designed net zero carbon housing. That's the 4 objectives. And as well as just the overall strategy, we created an action plan for Fielding and the housing team, and really departments across the council, because it's not just a housing document, it's also contains bits to do with planning, development and other areas. But it's not, although we had a plan in place, we then had a number of developments that were not part of the plan that really have taken up a lot of time as well. There was the local authority supporting housing for silent groups through the local authority housing fund to buy homes for those that need them. And I expect Councillor Philip Rivers can say more about where we've got to with that. Throwing that out to you. I know that we have 4. I don't know the latest number of houses that we've already put offers in regards to that scheme, because So our kind of vision of having the council become a property owning and managing council has accelerated a lot faster than we had expected through that process. And then in terms of housing regulation, the side left of G. Rochard and Rochdale prompted highlight the poor condition of some rented properties and has pushed government to ask councils to take a much more close look at the social and affordable housing in their areas and the quality of that housing, which is something that we'd already started to do through the strategy. So our working with registered providers is a lot closer than it has been previously. So we have a much better idea of the nature and quality of the housing that exists in the district. And then also, as both the cost of living crisis for residents and the rises in interest rates for developers hasn't just has affected commercial developers, but also affected registered providers. And so that's something that we have been keeping a close eye on in our work with registered providers. And I'd like to thank the teams in the council for rising to those challenges and continuing to work to deliver more affordable housing and taking on new areas of work. And the report outlines the successes we've had. And then if you look to Appendix 1, you can see last year's strategy and where we've got to with that. And then in Appendix 2, the proposed action plan for 24-25. I'm just jumping between documents. And just to highlight a couple of examples, which is a joint strategy with Vale in South Oxfordshire. We've updated our Section 106 grant scheme for all types of affordable housing provision. And as we're discussing in the confidential session later with our property at Broadway, looking at direct provision of social housing in addition to the local authority housing fund housing, and working to support more community land trusts and other types of affordable housing provider to develop new sources of affordable housing. Particularly working with Ho Hub, which are providing kind of third-party support to towns and parishes and other groups. Very happy about. Just wanted to mention also alms houses, another source of affordable housing, very historic source, which we do have several in South Oxfordshire. But this report shows how far we've come and how much work we will have to do over the next year, both directly and with a range of partners. And I hope everybody is happy to be noting it. Yeah. Noting it. Page 229.
Page 229,
And
recommendations are to note the changes in National Housing Guidelines, note the latest progress against the action plan, and adopt the proposed new housing delivery strategy.
Yes.
Okay, do you have a seconder? Councillor Philip Over-Rivers?
Second.
Given that I've been
Do you want to speak now? Would you like to speak now?
Yes, very quickly. Yeah, I think it's just really helpful tool for accountability and to keep us and officers focused on what we're trying to achieve. I won't say very much because we've still got some more papers, but just to say that we have had 27 offers accepted for the last properties, 14 have completed and are being prepared for occupation, and then 10 more completions are nearing. That's where we are. But it is a lot of work. It is actually a heck of a lot of work. I mean, those of you who have one or two, in most cases, properties will know it's not easy stuff, right? Getting late. But it is a lot of work. And I think it's just such a, it sounds like a small number, but I think it's building the capacity and the know-how, becoming a registered provider. All of these things are just such an important part of being equipped to be a social landlord. So it's a lot of work, but it will pay off, and hopefully we can scale up in the future.
Okay, anyone? Councillor Palmer.
I just think it's really worth emphasising how much progress has been made in this area over the past few years, given what we inherited. And I think this has the potential. This whole area is a real sort of legacy achievement for this administration, and I think that there's not a person you could speak to in the district that wouldn't recognise the need for more affordable housing. And I think we said when we adopted the housing delivery strategy that it was designed to be flexible and allow us to work with a range of different partners to just really start to create a stock of social housing. And this demonstrates that the team has been incredibly innovative and has really been proactive in achieving those objectives. So it to me, when I was reading it, I think this is something that we should be hugely proud of. And obviously something there's still a lot to do, and there's always work in progress. But what a way we've come, and it's just more power to our elbow. Keep up the good work, guys. Well done.
Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've always liked this housing delivery strategy, and I like the roundness of it and the fact that we're working across different teams in the council. And I think what we have to also recognise is that social housing, recognising that there's a need for it, also comes through our local plans. And what this paper also brings out is the work that we're doing on our joint local plan. Obviously, it's still in just gone through Reg 18, but we've got draft policies on the community-led housing, which is mentioned there. And successful progression of our joint local plan is going to be really quite key in delivering a lot of these houses, social rent houses and affordable housing going forward. And also, I also like that there's a mention on page 253 to ensure that the approach of council delivered housing complies with best practice and fully compliant. I think we perhaps have seen other councils around the country go a little awry, and I think that we've got a good approach set out in this paper, and well done everybody involved.
Anyone else? Councillor Barker.
Yeah, just very quickly to reiterate, until 2 years ago, we didn't have this in South Oxfordshire at all. It's a fantastic thing to have, and it's great to see the progress that's being made. And yes, as I'm sure we all agree, this is absolutely vital because, it's, I don't know if you describe it as market failure, but however you describe it, the fact is that there is a real problem in South Oxfordshire with the type of housing that's coming forward, the type of housing that is available to either buy or rent, and it's not meeting the needs of the community. And so it's a really important strategy, and one that I think it's fantastic on the table. I think the other great advantage of having this is that as government schemes call like LARF, or as government changes and has other ideas about how to deliver housing, we hope, then we're in a position to take advantage.
So Bennett, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, in fact, that's a good point. And we have a general election coming soon, probably. And part of the reason for not fully revising the strategy now is we might hope that under a future government we might have huge pots of money spent on social housing. Who knows? It doesn't sound very likely, but we never know.
Dream.
And I guess I think what's really positive through that improved relationship with registered providers, of course, I'll mention Soho. They're not the only one in the district, but of course they're the one that took on the housing that South Oxfordshire had 30 odd years ago when the housing first was divested from the council, and we have worked positively with them so that they hope that we have a management agreement for some of those properties that we're taking on, and if we were taking a very aggressive approach to building housing, that we could actually make life more difficult for our registered providers. So I think this strategy is quite balanced, and not least because after some of the high-profile council failures, we haven't sort of gone gung-ho into borrowing vast sums of money to build housing, and we're not allowed to anymore. So I think this strategy strikes the right balance. But I am very excited that over the last year the council became a registered social landlord for the first time in 30 years as well. So there's really is a big change of emphasis for the council, and I think I'd like to thank the team again, Paul Fielding, Nigel Bauer, Suzanne Malcolm, and everybody across the council that's contributed to this. So thank you very much.
Okay, can I see those in favour of the recommendations there? That's everyone. Moving on to item 12, which is housing enforcement policy. And I should point out that this is not planning enforcement, it's housing enforcement. Councillor Philippa Rivers.
That's over to me. Yes, we had a little chat about the name. I don't think we have huge amount of liberty to just call it anything that we want, but we will find a way to make the distinction, to make it obvious somehow when this eventually, hopefully, if approved, ends up on the website. So here we're talking about ensuring that private rented properties are provided to a good standard.
I'm sorry, can I just stop you? I could take advice on, at the beginning, we had a few people who registered interest as in their capacity as landlords. Is managing officer online? If not, then the chief executive somebody is happy for those people to take part in the discussion, or
Who they got?
And we just sit here and say nothing.
Seeing that I 100% hand on heart don't know the right answer, that would probably be helpful. So you can listen because it's a public meeting. I'll just say that so that clears that bit up for you. I wouldn't hand on heart say that you are not conflicted, so it would be better not, as long as we remain quorate.
yeah, we only need three of those
properties in the district, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually have one in elsewhere, not in.
This would only apply if your property was in sorry, yeah, it would only apply, in my view, if your property was in South Oxfordshire.
Anything you have in Bulgaria or Greece. Okay, so those who own property which they rent out as a landlord in South Oxfordshire, can I see who that is? Sue, people. So if you could not participate in this discussion or vote. Sorry, that I interrupted you there. I should have done that at the beginning. But
No, I shouldn't.
And Councillor Simpson as well. Okay.
I think it doesn't. But okay, so as was discussed elsewhere in the agenda, we are committed to improving the availability, the condition of housing that is provided. And of course, in the housing delivery strategy, there is a bit around private sector housing. We've got the empty homes strategy that was approved recently, and this is another really important strategy. And I believe it is the first, Paul will correct me if that's not correct, but it is the first one we've ever had, and this is around enforcing the acceptable standards, I think we have called it, for housing in the area. Not that previous obligations we have had via kind of the long list of legislation that is applicable to this area of work, which you can see in the report. It's just that it's now being put in one place. Some of the impetus for that is because of the recent damp and mold legislation. There is the renters reform as well. So I think it felt that it was the right time to put it all in one place, to provide clarity to everybody, right? To private landlords, to agents, to tenants, so that everybody understands where they stand and what their rights are, etc. That said, this is the idea is we want to work with private landlords. They do deliver service, and hopefully, in most cases, a good service. We need those properties, and we do want to also work with private landlords via our lettings agency as well. So really the intention is very much to work positively with landlords on remedial action, of course, where issues arise. And you can see in the actual policy, we will look at informal action first and formal action first. But what is really quite amazing is that we do, as a council, have quite a lot of leverage to ensure that properties are at a good standard. So, but the idea is to really do work positively and use this opportunity, some of this new legislation that has come forward, to get to know our private landlords as well, to see how we can help them to deliver for our residents. So this is it. I think it's a really clear paper. You can see the powers that we have kind of towards the second half of the paper. The legislation involved is incredibly informative and detailed. And if you have any questions regarding legislation, I would probably ask for some of our officers. I do know some of it, but just so I don't mislead you, we can ask some of our officers to help us with that if you were interested.
First of all, do you have a seconder? That's a minute. Are there any questions? In which case, would you like to speak, Councillor Bennett?
Yes, I think it's excellent to have this policy. So thanks again to the team, and really it's a key part correlating to the housing delivery strategy in general. And I guess we're used to seeing regulation of houses of multiple occupancy in urban areas, but it's increasingly an issue in our district as well. And so it's really important that we have this policy, and it, as Councillor Pover has said, it gives us quite a few. We have quite a few powers in regards to rental housing, so it's really important that we are there to protect our renters, and some of the powers even give us the ability to challenge landlords on the energy efficiency of their homes, and so not just protecting residents from things like mould and overcrowding, but also having lower energy bills.
Everything, carbon monoxide, pretty much everything you can imagine.
Yeah, so very happy to say in this. And
okay. Anyone wishing to speak? I have one small thing, which is to reinforce the importance of private landlords. I think one of the most significant and most successful areas of work within the council is homelessness prevention, and we couldn't do that without the cooperation of private landlords, who quite often are the people we turn to when we need to house someone. So this is not an anti-landlord thing, it's about making sure good landlords. Do you want to sum anything up?
Sorry, David, I
just
one quick comment I wanted to make was about, I mean, again, could echo everybody's comments. I think, and I see from the report that, we are getting reports from tenants and we are dealing with them, we are acting on them. So clearly, this is that we're already taking our responsibilities very seriously here. And I think one of the things that having a policy allows us to do is make tenants aware that we have a policy. Because what we don't want is for to people to suffer unnecessarily when they could be contacting the council to get some support and help with their dealings. Because obviously most tenants will probably go to their landlord first of all if they've got an issue, and they'd hope to get it resolved locally, with directly with their landlord. But clearly, if they reach an impasse, or if they have an uncooperative landlord, then they can see us as somebody to support them. And often these are very vulnerable people who need our help. So I think just a message to the team. I'm sure they're already doing this, but I'd like to know a bit more about how we communicate. How do we do that? How do we make sure that this responsibility that we now have is made known? Renters.
Well,
I don't answer. I need an answer now.
No, I was going
to like to sum up.
Yeah. Thank you all. I mean, obviously, we can have a discussion around how we communicated, and I think what Councillor Wayne was saying is quite important, is getting the balance right of everybody understanding their rights and responsibilities. This is the point of this, is to set it out so that there's complete clarity in terms of what landlords and tenants and agents as well, and we can have a think about the exact communication. Luckily, we've got a cabinet member for comms who has raised this very question, so hopefully we can have a think. But yes, it's really positive, and thank you all for supporting it.
Okay, I see those in favour of the two recommendations, which is approve the adoption of the policy and, subject to approval of the policy, to delegate authority to the head of housing and environment to make amendments in future. Can see those in favour. That's everyone who is entitled to them. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is item 13, budget monitoring, April to December. So Councillor Barker.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is effectively for quarter 3 of the financial year, which takes us up to the end of December 2023. This is a little late, and that's because we've just come out of the budget cycle where a lot of time and effort was going into preparing the coming year's budget, and so therefore this has come forward a little bit late. But no major issue with that. There are no big surprises here, no big changes compared to the previous 2 monitoring reports. And in fact, overall, it's a very good outturn. I mean, as with any report that's looking at actuals versus budget, there are areas where costs have turned out to be higher or revenues turn out to be lower. There are areas where the opposite is the case. But looking at the overall picture, the budget is turning out by 1.8 million better than better than the budget. The forecast has turned out to be better than the budget by 1.8 million. So, given that the overall budget is around the 20 million mark, that's a very significant sum indeed. And I think we can be very pleased with the financial performance of the council at this current time. One area I would like to mention is that one of the areas which has turned out to be slightly different from the budget is that we have very high levels of staff retention in the council, amongst the lowest in the UK, and that's a very positive thing. And therefore the vacancy level, is a lot less than was budgeted for, and that has been adjusted in future budgets. But I think that's an indication that we're doing something right with regard to our staff and the way we manage the council. In terms of there is mention in the report of slippage in capital programmes, so I just wanted to clarify that in this case that doesn't indicate that there's some kind of delay in a programme or that a programme has been put back. It's just reflecting the way that the accounting has to be done when there are grants involved. We have to bring the grants into the current year, even though we're not expecting to actually make use of that grant until the future year, and then it gets moved to future year via the slippage process. But it doesn't actually, in this case, mean that a project has slipped in any way compared to when it was supposed to happen. I think that's all I want to say. So I recommend the Cabinet notes the report.
Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Powell.
Very quick one, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer again. When we looked at the budget pack and we set our budget for the next year, for this current year that we've just moved into, I think we had these numbers in that forecast. Did we say when we were looking at, or did we not? When we were looking at the year-end forecast, then did we know? Had we anticipated some of these underspends? I think we did, didn't we? I'm just checking that we did anticipate them.
Yeah, because we'll see that in every monitoring report. At the time we had the monitoring report for Q2.
Yeah.
And there's nothing significant that's changed in Q3 in terms of.
Yeah.
So, for example, a grant that we already knew was going to be spent over a period of 3 years, that's built in.
So when we set our budget for this year, it was in full understanding of exactly what movement there would be between last year and this year.
Just doing accounting, showing off there. I'm assuming you have a seconder for this. Any debate? Any question? In which case, can I see those in favour of noting this report? Everyone. So our next item is going to be exclusion of the public. Before we do that, I'd like to raise something, which is that it's Steve Culliford's last cabinet meeting. He's been a voice in my ear for the last 2.5 years, and has worked for the council for something approaching 104 years. Or close. How many is it actually?
42.
Oh my goodness.
So, and moving into a well-earned retirement. So on behalf of the cabinet and everyone else, I guess, online, We'd like to thank you for your work over that time.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Cabinet.
You certainly did your time.
I thought you said that he was moving into a retirement home then.
So that's how long you've got, Doris.
Oh, no. Sounds like a threat.
Okay, item 14 is exclusion of the public, and that is to consider whether to exclude members of the press and public from the meeting for the following item of business under section 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended on the grounds that 1, it is likely that there will be disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A, and 2, the public interest is maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing that information. Can I see those in favour of excluding the public for the next item? That's everyone. Thank you. And can I remind any councillors that are online or officers who will be joining us for that they need to log out of this meeting and log into the exempt meeting, which should also be on your calendar. And while everybody does that, because we'll loosen it along the way, I'm going to go and powder my nose.